This section of notes, we're going to be looking at industrialization and the environment. First thing I want to do is to identify what fossil fuels are. Fossil fuels include coal, petroleum, and natural gas, are residues of plants and animals that were buried millions of years ago through time and pressure of the Earth's surface, as well as heat that has changed the chemical makeup of these properties into creating fossil fuels. Letter A, fossil fuel reserves. Energy deposits that have been discovered are called proven reserves. Those reserves that we don't know how much of it there are called potential reserves. We don't know the potential of the potential ones, for lack of a better word, but the proven reserves, we know how much that's in there. Number 2, consumption of fossil fuels. More developed countries with about a quarter of the world's population consume about 3/4 of the world's fossil fuels. So even though in these more developed nations there's not as much people as the rest of the world, we consume a whole lot more fossil fuels than the less developed nations. We have more cars, we have larger homes to heat, we have a bit more businesses to run that use that energy, and so we consume a lot more of these fossil fuels. Now, to kind of give you a picture of that, got a stat here. These are the top consumers of oil today. The United States is number 1. This is 1 billion barrels per day. China is number 2. Japan, Germany, Russia, India, Canada, South Korea, Brazil, and France. You look at this list, you've got United States as a more developed country, Japan, Germany, Russia, Canada, and then France. And some of your newly industrialized countries are also on this list, with China, newly industrialized, with China, India, South Korea, and Brazil. You have 0 less developed countries, which shouldn't be a surprising statistic. Now moving on to possible solutions to these environmental problems. One possible solution is prevention. Some governments have encouraged the destruction of the environment to get ahead. For example, the Soviet Union is one of those types of governments that did that did not worry about the environment being destroyed. They're just worried about producing more. And so one means as a solution is to prevent these governments like this from doing that. Number 2, technological change. Installing pollution capturing filters for industrial runoff is such of an example of technological change that could be a possible solution. Number 3, mitigation. Mitigation reflects damage that may be undone or reduced once it is done. For example, cleaning up oil spills, taking the time and the effort and the resources to make sure that you fix what you messed up, if it's possible. And number 4, compensation. Political bodies may negotiate compensation for those negatively impacted by waste and by industrial runoff. By compensating these other countries, you're not affecting the environment, but it could be seen as an effort to try to convince countries that are causing this pollution to not cause this pollution because they have to compensate these other countries that are being affected. However, if you were compensating these countries affected, then they could use money for mitigation to clean up or technological change to make sure that the environmental problems can be fixed. Number 5, industrial pollution. Global warming, or the increase in the Earth's temperature, caused primarily by the burning of fossil fuels, is something that's occurring according to some scientists. They believe that because of industrial runoff and pollution, that the environment is changing. One of the things that's affecting the environment is acid rain. Acid rain forms when sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides are released into the atmosphere. Oftentimes, this is from the burning of fossil fuels. And the problem with acid rain, like the picture down here in the bottom left corner, is these areas that are causing the high pollution. A lot of times, these areas are not affected by the acid rain. It's the areas that are in their borders, that are next to them, that's receiving this acid rain, because it gets into the atmosphere, and then it moves with the atmosphere, and then it rains down on other places. And then, last but not least, I have a section here marked things you may have missed. There's three terms that I feel like I kind of skipped over that I want to go over with you. The first is Footloose industry. Now, this is not the song, Cut Loose, Footloose. This is a type of industry. It's an industry that is neither resource nor market oriented. For example, a computer chip creation plant is not located around the resources or near the market. A lot of times these computer chip creation plants are located in export-oriented industries in places where, like the four Asian tigers, where they are exporting these goods to the market. And then the last two things I want to look at, bulk reducing industries and bulk gaining industries. Bulk reducing industries are industries such as the North American copper industry. The factories are usually located closer to the raw materials because the raw materials are heavier and bulkier than the finished product. In other words, the materials it takes to make the product way more than the product itself. So the location of the industry is next to the raw material because it costs more in transportation to get that raw material to the plant because of the bulk. So these bulk reducing industries, such as copper, are ones that are located closer to the raw material because it weighs more than the finished product. And then the opposite of that, you could probably guess what it is, the bulk gaining industries. This is like canned foods. This is when the product weighs more than the actual raw materials. So if you're canning food, that metal in that can is going to make it weigh more once you put the food and the can together. And so these would be located closer to the market than closer to the raw material because the end product of a canned food is going to cost more.